Welcome back to the latest video about how you create quotes and do crazy things in quotes and so on. And I want to start right at the beginning now. I want to create a brand new quote. So I'll start with creating a brand new quote, and I'll do this in sort of bite-sized chunks for you to watch at your leisure and hopefully learn something from. As usual story, which is feedback to me if you have any thoughts or issues with that. So the first bit here is how to create a quote in the first place. So this is a brand new, completely clean quote, and I'm going to start here in my page here, which is called my deal, which is called SolarSense Test. This is the one that I usually use to do most of my test work in, and so it doesn't make any sense at all. All the numbers are wrong, everything's wrong about it, but it's just something that I use to create quotes and play about with quotes in. So, and the important bit here, if I scroll down the page, is going to be to scroll down to where the quotes are. So you would start in the same place. You would go to your deal, and you would then go to your quotes section here. Now, because I've used it, as I say, to create lots and lots of different quotes, it's full of test quotes I've done before. But this would work equally well if there were 100 quotes in here or if there are no quotes in here. I always go to this button here, which is the new button. Okay, and I'm going to do that here now. So I'm going to click new right there, and then up will open a brand new Virgin quote. Okay, so in terms of the first little learning objective here, that's created, that's achieved. Sorry, you have created a brand new quote. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now show you how to complete this first section here, quote information. Okay, so quote owner. The quote owner is always the person who is logged on at that moment to Zoho CRM. And in this case it's me, but let's say I wanted to create this quote for somebody else. That's possible to change as well. Usual story, click the drop down there, and I then have all these other users who I can choose. And if I wanted to do it for Warren, I could choose Warren. If I wanted to do it for Alex, I could do it for Alex, wouldn't really matter. And this might be relevant if, for example, someone like Trudy was creating a quote for you, or if somebody like Jess was creating a quote for you, or somebody like Abby was creating a quote for you, Tim. You would use this to select the quote owner. So that's just a little bit of background if you didn't know it on quote owner. Next field down we have subject. Now something you'll notice different about this one is the red flash on it. And red flash usually means that this is a mandatory field. In fact, it does mean it's a mandatory field. The process cannot proceed to the next stage without it. And the way you the way you choose that in here is that you would just give this a kind of plain English name, and in that plain English name you would give some description of what you're working on. So if it was I don't know, Salisbury Leisure Centre, you would write in there Salisbury Leisure Centre, and maybe if you're going to do multiple quotes, you might call it V1, V2, V3, V4, whatever it is you want to do. In this case, I'm going to call it test quote, because I know I'm up to 14 already, and I'm going to call this V15. Okay, so this is going to be test quote V15 within that, but I genuinely could have called it anything I wanted. That is an absolutely free format field for me to put what I wanted in there. Contact name, usual story. I'm assuming it's me, but the contact name, the account name, those sorts of bits and pieces are related to the deal that I've just created it out of. So as long as I'm creating it from the deal, it will have the appropriate contact name, the appropriate account name already in there. But as always, you can replace these. I'm not going to do it right now, but you can just click on any of these to have a look and see if you can then search for other contact names or account names if you need to do that. There's no reason why you should if you create it within the deal, but it's there as an option. Okay, then you have the quote stage, and again this is a mandatory field. It's pre-filled to say proposal, and that's one to watch out for. Don't just ignore this one. Maybe at some point I'll ask Jess to turn that into as a blank field so that you are forced then to choose something. But there are two real stages that are really important for you. Okay, and the first one is it's proposal, which is here. Now we've already discussed about the name for this is wrong. It probably should be called illustration. That's certainly something that Steve prefers. It's the kind of the thing that you give to the client when you have a pre-sales PV sold done, but you have very little more about it, and you send that to the client with some sort of kind of vague idea of what the whole thing's going to cost. So that's the proposal, not proposal issued, it's proposal. Okay, and the next thing then we are going to go for is going to be, excuse me, that was Jess ringing me up then. I'm going to call her back later, that's fine. And the next thing I'm going to, or the next option you're going to choose is that it could be a quote. Okay, and a quote is where you want this to be a full and final quote to the client. Okay, so if you are building the thing into a full final price for the client, then you need to change that to quote. And there's a reason for that, which is depending on what the quote stage is set to, there is code built later on in the process which will determine what happens next, if that makes sense. So those are the only two things you need to think about really, is it proposal, or when we get a chance to change it, is it illustration, or is it a quote? Okay, there isn't one for tender. Okay, with tender you would choose quote. So really that's all you're looking for. It's either proposal or quote. You can choose either of those, but you must choose one of them, and it's better if you don't choose any of the others, because if you do, the code elsewhere in the quote will fail. Okay, so that's worth bearing that in mind. And then the MPAN number, that's not a mandatory field. Maybe it should be, but it isn't. The presumption is you won't always have that at the earliest stages of this, but it's really important if you do have the MPAN number to enter that in their usual sort of format, 13 characters, whatever it is. Make sure that goes in there. That will be useful at some point in the future when we get into the process of automating the DNO application with these, but for this moment in time it's not a mandatory field. Then we move exchange rate. That's not something that you can do. It's called a read-only field. You can see that there, but you can leave that. You can ignore that completely. I don't know what it even does, but you can ignore that. Then you have the valid until. So as we know, we are supposed to be sort of setting a validity in the quote for about 14 days from the moment the quote is issued. Likewise, the proposal, which you can use this, you not use it in the proposal, but certainly needs to have something in it. So again, we would just click on that field. We know today is October the 15th, for example. If you want it to be 14 days, then okay, choose the 29th. If you want it to be longer, you can, but there's a danger in that, which is that you are out. These quotes change from time to time. The technology and in the products changes, so we don't use that product anymore. The price for them will change. That changes hopefully at least every week or once a week, and so for that reason, you would be best to choose 14 days. That's the requirement there anyway. Then you have deal names. That's the deal it was built under, and you remember it was built under the SolarSense test deal. The quote potential reference, so that's going to be the reference that goes on the documentation, and then currency, which is choosable, but there's no reason why you would change it, and in fact here you can't actually, so it is GBP, and that's exactly as it should be. So there you go. That's how you would create a brand new quote and complete the quote information. So I'm going to click save now at that point. I'm not going to do it in front of you because actually when I come back I'll need to redo this or do more to this quote, so I'm going to leave that open for the moment. But anyway, if I was saving that, it will probably force me to do certain things I don't want to do because I haven't completed other mandatory fields later on, so I'm going to come back to those in just a moment. Okay, thanks very much. I will speak to you again in a moment.